The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, the 12th chapter. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But Jesus said to him, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbitrator over you?" And he said to them, "Take care. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then Jesus told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, "What should I do? For I have no place to store my crops." And then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be?' So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich toward God." This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
You may be seated. You know, in so many ways, this gospel makes us cringe. I mean, let's be totally honest here. We live in a nation in which having excess is the norm. A couple weeks ago, as my cousins arrived from Prague, we picked them up at the airport, drove them into Oswego, and as we pulled into our neighborhood, Gabby, who was 11, looked at her mom and said, "Does our cousin live in a castle?" You know, it's amazing because she was riding through this neighborhood of all these two-story homes. They live in a little flat in the city of Prague. But to Gabby, these homes all looked like castles. We really do live in a country where having much more than we need is normal. The American dream. Every generation must have more than the generation before it. And then we get to this gospel in which Jesus literally calls us fools. Because you can't take the stuff here with you. You see, Paul referenced that in his letter to the Colossians. We saw that in our reading from Ecclesiastes today. It's not about wealth. It's not about the size of your home. It's not about the number of possessions you have. It's not about what car you drive. Your life is measured by the love you share with each other and with God. Period. Our lives are measured by the love we share with each other and with God. That's what our lives come down to. You know, we spend our lifetimes trying to reach certain goals. We have these ideas the bucket list, so to speak. All these things we need to accomplish in a lifetime. We need to see this, and we need to go do that. And the truth is that a full life is lived in relationship to God and others. We don't really need all those things. What we need is love. What we need is respect. When was the last time that you spoke to somebody and asked them, "What are your dreams?" And their dream was to love as many people as I possibly can. It is not really the American dream, is it? So the question becomes, how far off base are we? I would say quite a bit. Over the years, I remember so many times talking to friends, relatives, Gail, about the things we wanted. There was a time in my life that my cousin and I both someday were going to have a Trans Am. I drive an SUV. It doesn't look anything like a Trans Am, and I'm very content with it. We were all going to have these humongous homes. We were all going to have security, not a worry in the world, win the lottery. The truth is that as I've gotten older, what I have figured out is that my life is measured in the relationships I have with people. There is an interesting connection between an old friend of mine and I. John lost his dad on July the 29th of 1974. I lost my mom on July the 29th of 1996. John's dad was a firefighter in Mount Prospect. Died in the line of duty. John was 6. When my mom died, I was 27. She had had all kinds of issues related to her heart because she had been a juvenile diabetic, and back in the 40s and 50s, being a juvenile diabetic wasn't like it is today. They couldn't treat you as well as they do today. The heart disease was a side effect. So at some point this past week, John and I did go back and forth a little bit, in which we both acknowledged how blessed we are to have had the parents that we do, even if they're not all here anymore. My parents are both gone. John's dad obviously is. His mom is still living. But, we both acknowledge the fact that in our lives, amongst the greatest gifts are the love that we received from our parents. And in our lives, amongst the greatest gifts that we can give is our love to our spouses, to our kids, to our family, to those we meet every day. at some level, I think we both learned fairly early on in life, for John very early in life, not to take the relationships for granted. Far too many people do that. That is what this gospel is really, truly about. Your life is about relationship. It's about love. It's about respect. Quite frankly, God could not care less about what you own. God's place of business in your life is your heart. Think about that for just a moment. We do give thanks to God for all the things we have, but quite frankly, God could not care less what you have. God cares about your heart. Understand that. That is the treasure from above. Your love. So when you see Paul write about putting aside greed, and putting aside anger and wrath and frustration, what he's really saying to you is focus on the one treasure that is truly meaningful, the love that God has planted in your heart. A friend of mine, actually this morning, sent me a little note, and in it she wrote, God's knees are the only place where true peace exists. Sitting on God's lap is the only place where true peace exists. Think about that. We all in here have memories of sitting on our parents' knees or grandparents. We were at peace. Sitting on God's lap, focused on love. That's where peace exists in this world. You will not find peace in any amount of money. You will not find peace in any specific home or car. You find peace in love. That is the treasure from above. And it is the greatest treasure of all. It's not in our lectionary for this week, but don't ever forget 1 Corinthians 13. And the greatest of these is love. Love is the treasure from above. It's where your peace truly lies. Seek love. Thanks be to God. Amen.